Welcome to this week's Treasury Career Corner podcast, where I interview Treasury professionals about their Treasury careers. Each and every week, I talk to them about how they've built their careers, where they are now, where they see both themselves and the Treasury profession going to next. Let's get on with the show. In this week's show, delighted to be joined by Brice Zimmermann, Global Head of Treasury at Alcon. Alcon is a global leader in eye care, dedicated to helping people see brilliantly. With a heritage spanning over 75 years, they offer the broadest portfolio of products to enhance sight and improve people's lives. Truly global, they work in 60 countries, serving patients in over 140 countries. Long history of industry first, which we'll get a bit more into the company as always with Brice, and he can explain what it's like for him as a treasury professional there. But as always, we're going to start with his origin story, if you like. And apologies to listeners, you can hear Brice is going to sound amazing. He's got a great microphone. I've got a bit of a cold. So when you're listening to this, just bear with, we'll try and tweak it in the after edit, but I'm still going to sound like I've got a cold because I've got a cold. But there you go. Get out there. Brice, if you would, back to you. Origin story, if you would. How did you first discover finance and then move into treasury? Over to you, sir.
So basically, already as a student, I always wanted to work in finance. And at the very beginning of my career, I chose audit, as I thought it was a good way to already start working, but still be on a learning path. When you start your career as an auditor, you change clients regularly and you see different ways how companies are organized. And this is a very great way to keep learning and developing your skills.
Some of the guys coming out of university, here's a position in audit. You're like, really? Audit sounds a bit boring. You didn't find it that. I remember I'm looking at my show notes and you actually really found it a good way to understand what's going on under the bonnet, as it were. Was that right?
Yeah, exactly. You get to see a lot of clients and the same topics are treated differently by different clients. As I started in Luxembourg, I worked very much in the fund industry. I had the opportunity to audit a corporate as well and many banks. And it was really, really very interesting to see the different cultures and different accounting treatments as well for the same topics. So this is what I found interesting. And
a good place to start as well, Luxembourg. Lovely city, lovely country, lovely everything.
Yeah, exactly. You as a French student, you have the choice between Paris, which is obviously a natural place if you want to start your career in auditing, or as I studied in the eastern part of France, Luxembourg was as well quite a natural choice. And at that time, there were more than 200 banks in Luxembourg. I chose that area.
And it's great because it's a really international environment. So you got that exposure, and then the next move, back to you.
The next move was moving to a bank, actually, in Luxembourg, because I wanted to see the real stuff. The good part as an auditor is that you gather a lot of experience. The more frustrating part is that you come to a client, you make recommendations, you're never sure that they will be effectively implemented. Moving to a banking sector or to the other side, you effectively see challenges, you see opportunities, you get to develop, you get to work on projects and go from there and keep building on the projects you've implemented to develop the system further. And this is what I really enjoyed. And then the next move was that I actually was lucky enough to pass a diploma of financial analyst. This gave me broader knowledge in the finance spectrum. And that was really a key step for my next move, which was then to move to Treasury.
Had you heard about Treasury by that stage, or was it brand new to you, or someone said, here you go, here's Treasury, and you're like, what's Treasury?
No, it was really brand new for me. I had studied a lot of economics, derivatives, bond, equities, and so, but effectively working in a Treasury department for a big corporate like Novartis was brand new to me. I knew nothing about Treasury and what Treasury really does. It was a great move for me because since then I have really enjoyed every day coming to the office.
What was it like being, that fresh face within Treasury? You came along and it was like, well, all of Treasury's new, but you're then working as Treasury Controller in a global multinational. How did you again, this is advice, if I'm thinking, put myself with some of the listeners, they're going, crumbs, that's what I'm about to do, or that's what I'd like to do, but it's a little bit daunting. How did you, get over that, if you like?
You have to be really open-minded and show a lot of willingness to learn and be motivated, because every day you come to the office and for a few months you learn so much from your colleagues and by as well re-going into your books that you studied before. And you come back home in the evening and you have a huge headache because it's been so much you needed to assimilate during the day, but it was really fun.
And we, a lot of us know Novartis, but could you give, a lot of people don't know Novartis. So for someone that's fresh and say, hi, I'm the Treasury Controller at Novartis, they're like, who? Can you explain who and what they did and the dimensions of your role that then we'll explore a bit more on the Treasury side?
Novartis is one of the global leaders in healthcare. They are headquartered in Basel in Switzerland. They operate in tens of countries as well. They are really global as a company. The treasury team, the Novartis, is very significant. You have a lot of currency exposures, and Novartis still has the specificity that they manage themselves their pension fund, which gives another flavor to the treasury function at Novartis. So you are really exposed to a lot of various topics when you enter a company like that.
And you mentioned you sort of going home with a headache. Obviously, take some of their local products; they'll get rid of it. So it's a good idea. You're sort of on that upward curve. Any tips for yourself? Any things that you look back on and think, I'm glad I did that, or maybe I should have done this a little bit more? And so again, we try and use the show where people listening can think, right, I should do it like that, or I should do it like Brice did. Like some people said, yeah, they went out and met everyone they could, or they had a really good notebook. Or what sort of tips would you give to people reflecting on that period?
I think the main thing is that you should be open-minded. You should not be scared of learning. You should develop your academic skills. And this is also what I've done constantly over my career. And you should learn as well from the others. I mean, there are lots of experts around you, and you should really tap into their knowledge in order to keep developing your own knowledge. And I think this is really key.
And you said you were keen on the academics as well. What sort of, if you're looking at a seesaw, a lot of people say, well, I'm qualified by experience. What sort of, is it a 50-50 mix between academics and experience? Or would you say one then leads on to the other? Or what's the sort of balance, would you say?
I would say that one leads to the other. You first, when I joined Novartis, I first developed by learning, by doing, effectively. And then you notice that you have a gap in your knowledge, and you then go and get some external qualification. After a few years of being a treasury controller, I noticed that my knowledge in cash management was not as developed as it should be. And then I passed the certificate in international cash management, which gave me a really solid basis in that topic as well. And I came back from that training with fresh ideas that we implemented at Novartis in the future years. At that time, it was in-house bank and payment factory. And this is exactly what we have implemented in the future years at Novartis.
Within Treasury itself, and it's a question I often ask, but people make the moves. You start as a Treasury analyst, manager, become a Treasury Controller maybe, then become assistant deputy, and then start to become a treasurer. Did you always think, actually, I'm going to aim for a treasurer position, or were you still just getting to know it at the time, something, the industry that is?
Yeah, when I joined, the whole time I made at Novartis, I worked as a treasury control. So first as a team member, and then I became a head of treasury control, and I made my whole career there. And then at that point, you reach a time where you think, okay, the treasury team in such corporate is so big that you have little possibilities. And when you're recognized as an expert in your area, the tendency is that you will stay in this area. And this is why I made the decision. And I got the opportunity to join another corporate, which was smaller, but have a bigger role in this corporate. This is why I made the move.
And we're going to go on to that because I think it's fantastic. And any listeners today, again, great value for free. Amazing. But when you're in that role in treasury control, that's obviously very firmly a middle office type role. Would that be the right way to describe it within Novartis?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Can you explain for some of the listeners now, senior listeners are going, yeah, well, I know middle office, but they've got to take themselves back to that stage. Because we've got people here at Treasury, they might be a back office treasury analyst and they're going, well, I'm in the back office, this isn't the most interesting role. And it's not, but it's actually one of the foundation cornerstones, if you like, of your experience. And then use the back office, then you know what the back office does. So when you're working in the middle office, you know not to pass rubbish to the back office, do it really well for them. And then actually you could then continue your career and maybe, actually I'm in middle office, I'll make a move into the front office, which does actually happen, I think, a heck of a lot more than when I first started my treasury recruitment career. With yourself, did you find that, looking back on it and reflecting, and how big was Novartis as a treasury team?
I think it was roughly 25 to 30 people.
Wow.
Especially as well because Novartis is managing its own pension fund. And actually, coming back to your point, I think you're perfectly right. One of the main topics when you enter Treasury is, and that's always been my point of view, you need to know how the engine is working.
Yes.
By saying that, you need to know in detail the processes. You need to know how cash management works. You need to know how the trade develops in the system and so on and so forth. And after a few years you've done that, you can really start connecting all the dots and getting to know, okay, if I change this in a system, it will have this impact on the currency exposure, for example, or on the performance calculation for the pension fund. And only when you know exactly how the engine works, you can really go the next step and run bigger projects that have a bigger impact on the overall organization.
And that's exactly what you did. And great point. Well made, sir. It's nearly like we planned this, but we didn't. So Brice, you then made the move from Novartis. Talk us through that, because exactly right. You'd filled in all the foundations, and then it was, to lead your own treasury. What was that like?
Yeah, actually at one point in your career, you have to decide, do you want to keep second role in a bigger organization, or do you want at one point to get the first role in a smaller organization? And for me, the answer was the second choice. So I joined Puma Energy in 2016 as the head of treasury. I knew that the company was obviously less organized than Novartis, coming from a different industry and a different stage of development, if I can say. But that was as well the challenge for me, was to say, okay, let's go in a smaller organization and see how well I can perform having the first role.
And what was that like? What were the challenges for you to make that step up?
There were many challenges. You change company, it's already a first challenge. Then you change the industry, going from healthcare to more oil, mid and downstream. That's another challenge. By changing company, you also have to adapt to another culture. And as well, one of the main changes was the following. At Novartis, I had become head of controls because I was a team member, and then I got a promotion. So I knew everyone, I knew all the systems. When you join a new company as the head of treasury, you have to learn everything from day one. So you have to know your team members, you have to know the company culture, you have to know the system, how it works, what are the challenges, how the team is organized, how the business is organized, because the business organization plays a role in your treasury organization. And this, when you come as a new joiner, these are all these challenges at the same time. So you have to ensure that daily business still operates properly. And you have to ensure as well that you bring your own improvements along the time, and that you don't disrupt anything.
And with that, you'd seen a size of treasury, 35 plus, people. And then when you made the move, what was the size of the team there? How did you then decide to organize it, and think, because you come in, right, this is your own baby now. So, right, got a good front office, or we're going to outsource some of it, or how did you then think, right, this is how we're going to structure it?
I noticed when I joined that there was not so much structure. And then coming from 13 years at Novartis, where you have a lot of structure, this was quite a change for me. So I wanted to bring more structure, define clearly the roles, in order to avoid that everybody does a bit of everything. So I rewrote the job profiles and the job descriptions, and I really assigned one main responsibility to each person. And I think it worked better like that.
Again, can you talk us through Puma? Because you've gone from healthcare to Puma. How did you deal with that? Treasury's treasury, right? There's no difference. I know there are differences. How was it like? What was it like for you as differences?
Oh, there are lots of differences. I mean, at Novartis, doing control, cash management, I was not so much involved or related to the business. At Puma, it was exactly the opposite. We had a trading desk purchasing a product. Then we had to to fund the working capital. We had to fund acquisitions in case there were acquisitions. At the same time, we needed to ensure that we were properly positioned in terms of cash, that we had the cash in the right jurisdictions. So it was much more hands-on and directly linked to the business compared to what I had experienced at Novartis.
And then talk us through the development and then the move on from that role, because I know that sort of you were there for a period of time and then sort of moved on.
I was there for 2 years. It was a great experience. I learned a lot, especially as well because the team was not so big in terms of number of people. So I had to invest a lot of time already in international treasury, funding affiliates across the globe. I had to learn much more details about currency hedging, balance sheet hedging, which I did not know from my time at Novartis. And then I had the opportunity to join Alcon, which is actually a spin-off of Novartis. I decided then to embark on this new challenge.
And what was it about this new challenge that came along?
This new challenge was really about starting something completely new. Alcon, till 2019, was a division of Novartis, and as such, it didn't have any corporate functions in this division. And being an independent company, especially one of the functions that needed to be built was the treasury function, and it needed to be built from scratch. So I joined this treasury team, not as the head of treasury, but as the head of control, because it was recognized as well that it was as well one of my main competencies. And I decided to join there, yes.
And talk us through, because what was the structure of treasury again? You've got this strength in structuring treasury. What was it like for you?
It was very interesting because it was really starting from blank sheet, if I can say so. Together with the treasurer, we discussed in order to build the structure of the team, so the different roles, how they were organized, the reporting lines, and then as well in terms of treasury system. When I arrived, the treasury system was still being developed, but we were far from being ready. And only in a few months we needed to be fully operational and be able to run the treasury function normally, meaning do cash forecasts, do currency hedging, be compliant for all the processes. So we had to build all the processes from scratch. And that was really a very challenging time, but a very interesting time as well.
You went in a controls role, but then, stepped up, if you like. Again, what's it like? Not the role per se, but you've gone back to, from a large group to a sort of more medium-sized group to then back to a large group, knowing that you'll be the global treasury person, director, as it were. You've got this experience. What do you think, if you're operating on that global scale, is important?
Operating on a global scale, I think what is important is to know how you want to operate. Both Novartis and Alcon are really centralized treasury functions. And this is also how I like to run the treasury function, be as centralized as you can be, because that's the way you can really get a complete view about the activities. And for me, this is as well the way you get the best risk management possible.
I'm sitting and shutting up because I'm just loving the lessons you're giving to everyone, Brice. And so talk us about, you became the global head of treasury back in 2020. Then did anything happen in the world? But, we put our feet up really, just, treasury turned a handle. Thanks very much. Pandemic, a couple of other things happening in the meantime.
Exactly. I got promoted in July 2020 during the lockdown. So it was quite challenging, but it was very interesting at the same time because you get to manage a team without being able to meet physically your team members. At that time as well, I reorganized or I reshuffled a bit the cards to adapt the treasury organization. After 2 years, I had been able to see what was working well and what could have been improved. So I brought in these improvements. So I also managed to implement a few changes in the treasury organization itself without meeting my team members. But at that time, then you have to be creative in order to still keep a close contact with your team members without being able to physically meet them.
We literally, just as a firm, we did a hybrid working / virtual webinar yesterday just about this very topic. What would you say was key? I know that when I spoke to Carl at Deloitte, he talked about having a regular meeting throughout lockdown. Did one at 9 a.m., one at 2, to make sure people weren't wearing the pajamas. He didn't just do it for that. So what he did was actually to produce a very strong team feel that has then continued post-lockdown. They still have a regular meeting structure, but it wasn't, again, you must be in this meeting. It was like, no, let's be in this meeting so we can, collaborate, so we can be part of a team. So you're not just individuals. And that was one of the things I probably didn't get enough over on the chat yesterday. So for you, having gone through this, how was that for you? How did you make that work?
If you're not able to meet people physically, you need to have, let's say, 2 types of meetings. You will have the meetings that are more focused on getting the job done. So you have a list of objectives, and you should not lose sight of your objectives that have been defined at the beginning of the year. And you should have a second type of meetings, which is more fun meetings, where you just discuss with the people about whatever you want, but not anything related to the office, because that's the only way you can keep building the bond with your guys.
I'm sat here listening. I'm loving it. That's why we've got some nice gaps, because you're giving some great value bombs for the guys out there. And then, Brice, as we move forward, we're now out of pandemic. We're back to the new kind of normal. Again, that's a good question for you. How many days a week are you then asking to meet up, or what's the structure going forward?
So at the moment, we are still having a flexible working environment where people are requested to come to the office 3 days per week, can work from home 2 days per week. In a few weeks, we will come back to another situation where people will be requested to come to the office 4 days per week and be able to work from home normally on a Fridays. Of course, we always have the flexibility. If people have a personal appointment, for example, we can manage on a case-by-case basis, but the general rule will be 4 days in the office and 1 day at home.
And then going forward, what are you seeing as the next challenges for Treasury per se? That what are you thinking? Right, these are the things we need to plan for. I know that you go to various conferences and it's about cyber, it's about this, about different things. What are the things that are keeping an eye on? Not really nervous about, but you think you need to be aware of with the team?
Yeah, I think 2 things. You have the global trends for Treasury, and the more and more you see that Treasury is integrated with the business. So trying to find solutions to improve the working capital, be it on the receivable or on the payable side. For Alcon, I think we are still a young company. We are only 4 years old. We've been able to achieve a lot, and credit to the team really, because it's not something you can do on your own. We are 20 people in Treasury at Alcon, and all these guys have been working really, really hard over the last 4 years in order to achieve a lot. But still, we are young, and at the moment, what we are busy working on is a strategic plan in order to determine where we want to bring Treasury in the next 3 to 5 years, because we still have a lot to do.
And what is that 3 to 5 year vision, without giving secrets away? But what do you think? This might be a topic that you and I talk about, or we're dragged into a conference session, say that perfect Treasury looks like this or looks similar to this. What would you say?
I would say we need to be more opportunistic about the technologies we use. Probably we haven't reached yet the level of automation we could have. Definitely we need to be doing more business partnering. So having a look at countries where it's complicated or challenging to do business and see how Treasury can bring a contribution. We need to be as well much more aligned with other functions, finance functions within the organization. So be it M&A, to be able to find flexible and flexible ways to fund the company. So these are the main topics we want to be working on in the next few months or years.
Without deep diving too much, Brice, but you mentioned about automation, and it's an interesting one. We do our salary survey now, and it's probably the closest, and treasurers like yourself have been quite inspirational to it, that the more that we could automate our salary survey, go to treasurysalary.com, take part, but then now it's automated. So someone comes in, they take part, it goes to Holly, she approves it, checks the person, approved, boom. Then immediately it automates and sends out not manually. It automates and sends out a copy of the salary survey to someone. They get it straight away. We can run the figures now. We can just dump them into, and I'd love to automate that process even more. But again, with yourself as a treasury professional, automation really, and people in the past have said, oh, it's going to replace us. It never replaces. I've always found it just supplements people's roles and actually means that you can do more with less in a good way. Have you found that yourself?
Yeah, I think you're never done automating. Everything that the computer can do, you should automate, really. And the idea is not to do the same quantity of work with less people. It's to have the same size of the team and achieve more. So, and as well, it's not only on the treasury side, but in Alcon, we are fortunate enough that we have only one ERP system now. But we don't, according to me, we are not benefiting enough yet from the fact that we have only one ERP. Let me just take one example. If I have an intercompany loan between one of my entities in Switzerland and another entity, let's say in Malaysia, today I record some entries on the Swiss side and another team will record the mirror entries on the Malaysian side. This all should be automated. If I enter an intercompany loan in my treasury system, all the bookings should be triggered automatically. For me, that's really the objective.
How are you going to achieve that? What will you? Again, I'm sure. Again, you're talking to other treasury professionals about how they do it. Any ways that you particularly found that are effective, and that you've talked to other peers and they said, yeah, we do it this way, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think you need to have a very robust treasury system. You need to build robust interfaces between your treasury system and the ERP, and ensure that you have the right controls in place. Because if you start booking across multiple entities in the world, you don't want to mess the accounting piece, because it would impact the whole group. So if you manage to have all that, you're on the good way to be successful. And as well, you need a lot of alignment and coordination with other teams or finance functions, like FRA, for example, which is key. But if you are able to do all that's really when it gets interesting, and that's where you have the biggest impact on the organization.
We're not quite at the end of the show, but we're approaching it. Team-wise, just going back to the people aspect for a moment, if we could. I know that's a strength of yourself when we had this in the pre-call, if you like. People-wise and management, you've got 20 plus people or whatever across multiple locations. What's your, any tips for, we're the recruitment company, but we don't really bring it up on the podcast because it's not a sales podcast. It's about you treasury professionals. But the key aspect we're talking about, we just talked there about hybrid, about people, and without, don't forget, if all the people disappeared, this stuff wouldn't happen. You can't automate everything. You can automate lots of it, but it still needs to be, the people are the key things. And the people listening today, you are the key people that make this stuff work. Brice, with yourself, what's your sort of people management ethos or what sort of tips would you give to other people listening today?
When I was still a team member, and it dates back from years ago, I always noted what I appreciated about my manager and what I would have liked my manager to do differently. And today I try to be the manager I would have liked to have when I was a team member. And if I can also do another parallel is I see my role as a football coach. I'm not here to tell everyone exactly what they should do, because in a lot of cases, my team members know at least as well as I do how they should do. But I'm just here to ensure that the team plays at its best and is and has the best organization, so that everyone can really give its full potential.
The summary of the parts is greater than the whole as well. And I've heard that a few times as well, that if you there, as you say, not the manager, as the coach, and you can provide all the opportunity for success, and then it's up to them to do the work. That's fantastic. LinkedIn, we'll put your LinkedIn details in the show notes so people can connect to you. I know there'll be a raft of people going, right, yeah, great, this guy's great, let's connect. Brice, what sort of takeaways would you give? I mean, that was a great one there, just about being that, thinking back to your earlier experiences about how you would have liked to be treated. That's a good one already. But other ones and other tips for anyone listening, maybe if they're early years of their career or a bit later on in their career, what are the takeaways you're going to give from today's show, if you would?
For me, one of the main takeaways, if I look back, is really you should always be willing to learn. I mean, the learning is never finished. Even today, you have new technologies, you have new opportunities, and I keep learning every day, and that's what makes the job very interesting. As well, you should always understand that in order to be successful, you are not successful on your own. You are successful as a team, and you are successful as well when teams work and collaborate together. And for me, if you understand these two things, learning and collaborating, then you're in a good way to be successful.
And we'll leave it there. The learning and collaborating with the team. I've just written team on the sheet 3 times. I think it's all about the team, and you can't do it without the team. But I think also I wouldn't want to underestimate your previous comment about being a coach to the team, not just the leader, but also the coach. You provide the opportunity, and they take them. Brice, amazing to chat to you, sir. We'll put the LinkedIn details and show notes, and another great podcast. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hello, it's Mike here again. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. If you did, then maybe you want to follow the show or subscribe, depending on where you listen, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, or another great place to listen to the show from. It's totally free and means that you'll be the first to see each and every week when we release a new show. And maybe whilst you're there, you could even leave a quick review. Reviews and ratings are among the most important metrics for a podcast to effectively rank. And as you can probably appreciate, the podcast is a lot of hard work to produce every week. It'd be amazing. Just take, say, 20 seconds, leave a quick review of my amazing guests and their great career stories. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks very much, and I can't wait to see you soon.